Alrighty, folks, we are going to check in with Casey over the last month or so, maybe 6 weeks. We have learned that she's bought 2 rentals. We also heard last week about a tenant horror story, and she had an opportunity to implement some processes and procedures. And she just had a chance to see how it went. So let's catch up with Casey from Brick by Brick Wealth. How you doing, Casey?
I am doing great, Michael. Thanks for having me back on.
Well, let's actually, most people want, Doom first. So let's talk about, remind folks of your tenant horror story from last week. Basically, you had a tenant that was habitually late. You kept listening to the story. It kept getting longer and longer. And ultimately, they got you for a significant amount of money. You've adopted processes and you just had another opportunity to implement them. So what
I sure
happened?
did. So, yes, last year we got rid of a nightmare tenant that was just a nightmare for 5 years in a row. Got him out, and it cost me $15,000 to redo, everything and take care of all the damage. We put in a new tenant last December, and just 2 weeks ago, I gave him a 14-day notice to cure or quit. And I got a phone call from my tenant across the street. So I have 2 houses across the street from each other. And she's like, I don't know if you know what's going on across the street, because she knows I own the other one because she's been there longer. But there was a drive-by shooting and they were shooting up their cars. And now this is pretty good neighborhood. So this is not typical for this area. And I'm like, this is not, a
Not good.
random thing. There's probably some issue going on with the tenant and the shooter. But that tenant of that house did not contact me at all. So I'm listening and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna find out what's going on. First of all, did any bullets hit my house? Like my new garage door, I just put in 6 months ago. So anyway, so I called the police station. We can't find any record of anything, of any like calling or anything like that. So I said, it's time to go see what's going on. Now, I was just at that house in April and everything looked fine. Now, they did have some extra beds in there, and I got a feeling the sister-in-law moved in, and, I was kind of letting that slide for a minute because they said I was temporary. She's had a baby. All right, we're seeing. So I get there, and my tenant across the street had said, it looks like they're running a daycare business out of the house. And it also looks like they're fixing cars on the property. So I'm like, okay, there's multiple reasons now to go besides just the sister-in-law's moving in while she had a baby.
Mhm.
So I had my was this Spanish speaking household. So I have a translator, a property manager, translator person who kind of, I'm the manager, but she kind of helps me translate since I'm not fluent in Spanish. Not enough to like hold anything up in court, you know what I mean? So she pops over there. She says, Casey, somebody showed up to pick up their child while it was there. So I'm like, okay, so that's one check off the box. That they are doing something wrong. There were car on blocks on the property. It was apparent that he was probably fixing some cars. He admitted to having to look at the cars and then he would fix them somewhere else. Cars lining the streets is what my tenant said. I'm like, okay, so this is enough reason now where it's fix the issues. So no more daycare business, no more fixing cars on the property, no more sister-in-law living there. 14 days to fix that, or you have to leave by the end of the month.
Mm.
So I'm like, I gave the notice literally right before July. And I'm like, do I wait until July after they pay? Right. And then give them the notice. And I said, no. Why? Because they always pay on the 5th. They always pay last minute anyway. So I'm not going to wait another week and a half of letting this go by, jeopardizing my 5-year relationship or almost going on 6 with my other tenant across the street. These are not the types of tenants that I want to have in my property, especially based on what happened last time. So I am going to nip it in the bud. This is just not acceptable. So I took my time and I wrote this really professional, didn't even use Chat GPT, a 14-day notice to quit, to cure or quit, and sent it to them in English and in Spanish. And I had my translator, read it in Spanish, make sure I did use Chat GPT for that, for the translation. She said just had to change one word, otherwise it was all good. Sent it to them. And they were out in less than 2 weeks. They moved out yesterday. They did not pay rent for July. So today's the 10th. And they moved out yesterday on the 9th, and I'm happy with that. I kept their deposit. As Blake and I were driving to the house, I'm like, oh my God, I just know they're not going to have moved out and it's going to be messy and they're not going to be done. And, all these things. Michael, they cleaned it perfectly. I have a little bit of touch up paint. and clean some fly guts off of the window. Otherwise, it worked.
There you go.
I'm excited. Oh my
Yeah.
God. It's like the best tenant move out you could ever hope for. They just left.
There you go.
And it cleaned it.
Well, I'm curious. You talked about a drive-by shooting. Did you ever actually see any bullet holes? Because sometimes, as you know, tenants, neighbors, they'll make stuff up because they want them to be gone. So was that a made-up story? Did you ever get proof of that or not?
So I was concerned, like maybe the tenants across the street, like just don't like them,
Yeah.
and maybe the shooting was random, maybe it was for another house or whatever. And so I called the police, and again, they couldn't tell me anything, but the tenant of the incident, whatever, she did write down a police number, and I got it texted to me yesterday. I have not called the police station to follow up, but I do have a police report number. So I'm gonna call and be like, I thought you guys said that there was no calls, and here's a number. What's going on? So I haven't got to do that yet, but I'm going to do it just because I want to know. I bet it was some personal thing though. Maybe the guy didn't fix their car right or
Who knows?
something like that. It's just not normal.
Yeah. One of the things you got to know if you're a landlord, you're also, you can be I don't know, a counselor sometimes. It's a people business, and people have drama sometimes. And if you're in an apartment building, there could be lots of drama. That's why single family homes traditionally are a little bit easier on that front. But also you bought a couple of purchases and you were doing some remodels. So did you stay on budget? You stay on task? Are they listed? What's going on with these two new purchases?
So one of them's almost done, and the other one we finished remodeling. Now it did need a lot of work. It did need a brand new kitchen, and we did some stuff to the bathroom. And it needed an entire new HVAC system, which I was aware of. So we put in a new air conditioner, new A-coil, new furnace, and a new water heater. And we relocated the water heater and the furnace out of the kitchen into the outside like storage areas so we can make room for a washer dryer in the kitchen. Old house, small, they were in the weird spots. So we did that. My HVAC guy, air conditioners are always our thing. Like that's the thing we always got to pay for. It's always an air conditioner. So I just assume, I don't care how old it is, and we're gonna need one. But we got a good deal on all that. It was like $14,500 for all the new system and moving it. So I was pretty happy with that. He did us a deal. So that was the bulk of our expense. And then Blake redid the kitchen for less than $3,000 and all new cabinets. And for appliances, we just did a dishwasher, a stove, and over the range microwave. And we'll have the tenants put in a fridge. We may or may not end up putting in a washer and dryer because we are going to have to do a stackable. We'll see per tenant on that. But the rehab costs were minimal, except for the HVAC. So probably all in all about $18,000. We bought the property for $195,000. That was a couple months ago when interest rates were 7.5%. They're kind of back to that now, but we did get a seller credit, and we got below asking, right? Because it had been on the market a long time, but you always like, look at the long DOM, and we do. And we got it below asking. And we got 2% seller credits, which we use for a rate buy down. So we got a 6% interest rate. So I'm like so happy with that. I did put on the market yesterday. It's really high. I do expect to drop the price, but let's just see what's going on. There's not a lot of properties in the area, like none. Okay. And it's in the #1 school district in Memphis. All the schools are 8s, so you can't really get better. So I'm like, let's just hope, let's just try higher. And if not, we still got time to drop it before, fall. So I'll see, but we'll probably make anywhere from $500 to $700 a month on that one after fixed expenses, and I do self-manage.
Very, very cool. So I'm curious. So you say it's listed pretty high. How long would you wait? Like, do you wait a week?
Probably give it 2 weeks.
2 weeks? Okay.
Yeah. Now I am only putting it online. I'm not putting a sign in the yard. So I know that definitely inhibits me from getting a lot of calls. But I'm going to be out of town next week. We're going to Colorado on vacation. I'm going to Nashville today for 3 days to speak at the investor meeting. And I don't feel comfortable really leaving vacant properties. We've left a property vacant before with a sign in the yard that says, I'm vacant. And then we've had a squatter. So I kind of use this sign in the yard as a worst case, like last minute scenario. So if I feel like I'm not getting enough leads, if I put a sign in the yard, I'll get 200 phone calls. So I'm just trying online first.
Very, very cool. And then lastly, as we have back to 7% mortgage rates and 8% for investors, have you just given up? You're no longer looking, or are you still looking every day?
Oh, heck no. no, no way. I am still looking every day. My students are still looking every day. And it's funny because I have one student and she was like, Casey, I'm so worried that rates are going to go down and then it's going to be another frenzy. And
Yeah.
it's just so funny. Like once you really understand how powerful a higher rate kind of is and the benefits for investors, you start not wanting those lower rates, you
Yeah,
know?
I couldn't agree more. That's a great mindset. Yeah, I think we need higher rates for a couple of months just to slow the market down, figure out who wants to sell versus who needs to sell. Casey, if somebody wanted to follow you, how are we doing that?
You guys can find me anywhere that says Brick by Brick Wealth. So Instagram, I am on there daily. Twitter, ooh, there's a new thing called Threads. So you can find me on Threads now. I feel like I'm gonna be posting a lot more personal, kind of day-to-day, sort of diary things about real estate and my life on Threads. Give it a try. It's not always gotta be so business. It's so real estate. So if you want a little glimpse into what's going on, I'll be on Threads too.
There you go. Thank you so much.